Soy de Namekasera Diakesiki. Welcome, Sai Tiapakasai de Nanamakaikesi, to another wonderful episode. Soy de Tapekaserenina Namakaikesi, Awakening Tip. Soy de Tapekaserenina Namakaikesi of this awesome month, September. Sai de Tapekaserenina Namakaikesi. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about following your joy. But first, let's take a deep inhale through the nose. Feel free to close your eyes if that feels safe for you. Exhaling through the mouth, let it go. Good, one more time, deep inhale. And exhaling. And just staying in stillness for a bit. Feeling all the feels. Feeling what it feels like to be you. Accepting everything about you. Loving everything about you. And whenever you're ready, opening up the eyes. Welcome, welcome. What a beautiful episode, honestly, following your joy. And right after, I actually chose to record this episode right after I follow my joy so that I can share with you. And the reason why it's so important is because we can get caught up, and that's totally my story, on just doing the inner work, right? Doing all the shadow work and going deep and deep and deep and deep. And it's like, gosh, it's exhausting as it is when it comes up to the surface. Imagine like when we're just constantly going for it, right? Which that was definitely me. And I mean, maybe you're very similar to me, but I go deep. I love the depth of shadows, the depth of light, and just the depth in general. And maybe that's not for everybody, and that's cool too, you know, but I really had to come into this part in my journey where it's like, wait a second, I'm just going so deep in the shadows. What about enjoying the mundane things about life, just the little things about life, right? Which it could be super simple. Laughing with my boyfriend, for example, right? Or cuddling with my puppy, or just going to the backyard and listening to nature. Or it could be hugging a sister, or just like dancing naked, you know, whatever it is, right? Or as simple as having a meal with your family, or having a meal in general, drinking a glass of water. You know, sometimes we can take that for granted. And I know for sure, sometimes I can take that for granted, right? And so then I began to just be like, yeah, that's true, you know? And all the messages that came through, of course, were like, hey, yes, it's important to do this work, right? And I mean, I was years doing this deep shadow work and in my own little cave, right? In my own cocoon for years when I left Las Vegas. And even prior leaving, maybe like a year before, a year and a half before, who knows, you know? It's important to also enjoy life, because this part of your life, you're not going to get it back, right? And so do you want to look back to this moment in the future, your future self, right? I mean, like, shit, I could have done something about it. I could have had more fun. I could have, whatever it is that you really felt the call to do, right? So I choose to live my life with no regrets. And at the same time, I gotta choose my regrets, right? So if I choose A, means that I'm not going to choose B, and I'm going to be okay with that, right? Or if I choose C, means that I'm not going to choose any of the other options, and I'm okay with that, right? So really knowing what you desire can really help you to have no regrets. Because honestly, when I not I constantly think about, but something that I think about somewhat frequently is when I am about to transition from this experience. I don't want to look back at my life and be like, I should have done this. I want to be there and like, I'm so at peace with everything that I did, building my legacy, you know, helping so many people, giving, donating so much, and breaking so many channels and so many codes in my family lineage for others in the collective. They're going to be so cool just leaving, you know? And I invite you to do that if that really resonates with you, right? But it's so important to also find that joy in life and follow it, right? And this is also is honestly doesn't have to be like so spiritual. It could be just like if you have a regular job, right? A 9 to 5 job, and it's maybe super intense. And then afterwards it's like, okay, what can I do? What brings me joy, right? So maybe it's watching Netflix with your partner. Who knows, right? maybe it's grabbing a beer, maybe smoking a little bit of pot. I mean, that's cool. That was totally my thing. Like, I will smoke a little bit and watch, not necessarily Netflix, but TV with my ex-husband, and would enjoy it while we were doing yin, and like being with our puppies or hanging out with friends. So, and the thing is that it's so important also to know that it shifts, right? It's not like there's a constant thing in life. The constant thing in life is change, right? So something that brings you joy right now might not bring you joy tomorrow, and that's totally okay. Or maybe there's a really constant thing that really brings you so much joy, and then you know how to accept it, right? So if you are in a moment where, for example, you're going through deep shadow work, right? So this week has been like massive. I mean, honestly, not gonna lie, since the Lionsgate portal or 8-8 has been like super freaking intense. But I still find my moments of joy, right? Just being freaking silly with my boyfriend, with my puppy, with my sisters, and being silly with myself first and foremost, because then that's how I enjoy life, right? I love to be silly. And this takes me into this point, right? Because at times it was not going to make any sense, period. It's not going to make any sense what your system is telling you to do, right? And that's your choice. Do you choose it or you not? And I choose to follow my intuition. I mean, my whole work is based on intuition. So I woke up this morning and I started a new Kundalini meditation and Kriya that so okay, it doesn't really matter the details of it. Sometimes I really go into like the depth of the details. Is what I was talking about. I go deep and all the things because my boyfriend is like, to the point, get to the point. I'm like, I'm gonna get to the point, okay? I'm gonna spare you the details. And through the practice and after the practice, it's like, shit, I just gotta cut off my hair. Because if you have been following me for a bit, I shaved my one side of my head about like maybe 3 years ago, and then I shaved the other side of my head 2 years ago. So I had both sides shaved, and last year that's how I was too. And at the beginning of January, I felt my being and my hair. I know it sounds a little silly, but this is my life. I felt my hair while I was shaving one side, saying like, "Hey, I'm done. Can we go back into, letting the hair grow?" So it was just funky. It was so funky because one, like the center was like super freaking long, and the sides are, if you're watching the video, like the length that it is right now. And I will do anything I could. And honestly, I'm not a hair expert. I'm an energy expert. So I will try to do anything that I could. And it still looked like I just got out of bed, So eventually my body this morning was like, we need to chop this off. And I was doing a podcast interview with my super amazing dear sister, Lindsay Schreiner. She's the owner of Peace Loving Yoga, which the episode will come live in a couple months. And it's really like this energy is like, we need to cut off this hair after we're done with this episode. I was like, okay. And I knew exactly where to go. There's a barber shop here where I go, because honestly, I don't understand why it's like $60 or $70 for somebody to trim my ends. Are you serious? So then I go to a barber shop here in Lawrence where he also is trying to cut women's hair, and I pay $15. Come on. And he's freaking cool, and he's a comedian too. So I just like get to like chat with him and laugh. Anyways, so that's what I did. Well, I had to ground myself because that episode was like deep. And I just went, and for some reason I knew that I wasn't even gonna wait. And I get there, he was finishing with somebody else, and then I just went in there. I was like, I need this off. Like, can you do something? And I come home. I mean, not I just come home. I looked at myself in the mirror because he's like, hey, is this cool? Perfect. That's literally how I had envisioned it. And then I sent a video to my boyfriend, and I was like, man, I feel like a woman. Toot, 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 toot. And I came home, no joke. This is what I'm doing, right? My being felt so happy. And this is about following my joy, okay? Because I follow that joy. What the joy my being was saying, we're going to be super happy when you cut this thing off. So let's go cut this thing off and let's be happy. So I played the Shania Twain song when I got home, and I just danced in my underwear and just being silly. And it was so and joyful. I enjoyed it so much. Okay. I enjoyed it so much. And then I realized, like, yes, I gotta do this episode. I had the title of the episode already, but it's so important, to follow your joy. What brings you joy, right? Maybe for you, it's dancing on your underwear. Maybe for you, it's sketching. Maybe for you, it's just going for a walk. Maybe for you, it's, who knows, screaming, right? And that's the important thing, because we need to balance this whole situation of spiritual journey out, right? Because let's be honest, it's freaking heavy. It can get so fucking heavy. And you just want to be in the heaviness. We got to balance it out, right? So we have the light and the dark, of course, right? And what I like to call it, the eye of the storm, right? And for me, the eye of the storm is whenever we're very balanced and we get to choose. I'm going to go to my dark shadow, my dark side, to do some kind of work and then come back, or I'm going to access the light to get a lot of like messages, connect with other galaxies, etc., and then come back, right? But there's this times where we're just in a way not necessarily pushed, but because of what's happening in the collective and in our beings, we just go towards like one side, for example, the shadow side, right? And we can just be there and feel so much the feels and just be like, fuck, this is heavy. Like, what can I do, right? And of course, a lot of times we don't want to do shit when we're in that space, right? I mean, I'm speaking from experience. Sometimes I don't want to do shit in that space, but I know I have to, unless there's something very deep that I need to experience. Okay, I definitely know the depth of my shadows, so I know I surrender, and I'm like, all right, how do I get out of this? And at times it's not necessarily if we're doing some kind of deep work, but when we're just enjoying life, we're alive, right? Alive. So do we want to spend a life just being deep in the shadows and like being like so heavy or blah 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 blah? Or do we just literally want to enjoy this experience, right? And I believe that it first happens with us. It happens with you, right? So what do you enjoy to do, right? And so if you, for example, have a day off, right, and you're like, what can I do? So think about what brings you joy. What is the one thing or a couple things that when you do it, you're just like, bring up your inner child and you're so in the present moment and you don't give a shit what other people say if they see you that way. You're literally in the child self as your adult self. And so then do the thing and bring so much joy to your being. And then you can go back and doing something else. But like the cool thing about that, when you follow your joy, then your vibrations are just like beaming, and then anything can happen and you're like, cool, yeah, okay, yeah, it's in a way an easier access to be centered and balanced. And from then you can continue to do the same thing, right? There's so many days that honestly I'm just like, what can I do, right? Okay, I gotta do the podcast or this thing, the post, right? It's like, do I really want to do the podcast right now? I don't really feel it. And I know exactly if I force it, then it doesn't come out. Because truly what I'm doing as I am recording an episode and the podcast is channeling. And which is what I do anyway for my work, So if I'm not in that space of channeling, it's not going to come through as easy, and it's not going to be joyful for me or even for you listening to this. Yeah. The same thing when I need to post something, when I need to record something else, when I need to sit down and work in a program. Honestly, my programs have been channeled and I had received them like this in seconds. And okay, minutes, not gonna lie, minutes. So if I'm not in that space of receiving and channeling, then it's not going to flow easy, and I'm going to force it, and it's going to be super annoying and frustrated. So instead of doing that, I'm like, all right, so I don't really feel like doing the podcast right now. What do I feel like doing? Oh, I want to spend time in nature and sing to Mother Earth. Okay, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to be there for hours, you guys. Maybe sometimes I am. Maybe sometimes I'm just there for a minute. I'm like, cool. Now I feel really inspired. Let's record the podcast. See all the shit that I just saved myself rather than sitting and recording a podcast and then being like, oh, I just don't feel this, And then you feel the energy. Somebody else that is listening feels the energy. So I choose not to do that, right? And of course, things happen. At times you have to do things that you don't want to do, and I make the best out of it, right? So this is what I mean. Follow that one thing that brings you so much joy. Sometimes, honestly, I'm so goofy that at times I don't even think about what I'm doing to bring joy. I just bring joy. Like I am extremely good at making myself laugh. And I laugh to the point that I cannot breathe and my low back hurts. So then my boyfriend is like, goodness. And, that brings joy to me. And it makes, I don't know, makes him see me more silly. And that's okay. That's who I am. Right. So again, for this awakening tip for you, it's like, what are the things? Yeah. Because sometimes it could be more than one that would allow you to experience life more bright, right? And honestly, it could be as simple as I want to have a shake right now. Have a freaking shake, Or maybe right now I feel like calling this sister, or maybe this brother. Or right now, I just want to lay down and not do anything. Or maybe I just want to take a nap. See, like there's unlimited information, right, in the field, in your field, in the field of your being. So that is the one thing that we honor. That's the one thing that I invite you to honor that, right? Because honestly, for example, for my boyfriend could be playing chess. I look at a chess game, I'm like, I have no idea what is going on. And it might bring actually annoyance, because I'm like, you're playing and I'm just here like looking at something that's I don't know this language. Yeah. And same thing with Hank could be like, maybe he's trying to channel. He's like, I don't know, So without thinking about what brings joy to somebody else, right? Like literally I invite you to sit and write down. So like, what are the things that make me feel alive? What are the things that bring me for example, awareness or presence, right? Or what are the things that my inner child likes? And most of the time, not necessarily all the time, but most of the time is something that you really enjoy as a kid, right? And I'm saying not all the time because, for example, I did not grow up in the States. Did not grow up eating pancakes, and my inner child loves blueberry pancakes. I grew up with some hot chocolate milk, so she likes chocolate milk, and I still do that with cacao, right? But see, it depends, right? So it's so good to know those things because then not only would it allow you to get out of a really like funk state, but also when you feel a little bored and you just need to like bring the energy up, right? Then you have your list. It's like, okay, I can do this, but I don't feel like doing this. I will do this. Check. All right, let's do that. And again, it doesn't have to be like 50,000 hours, I mean, I danced this song of Shania Twain for like, what, 4 minutes? And I felt great. And afterwards, I was like, all right, I'm done with the song. Well, I listened to it twice, actually. But, so it's something about you. And you know yourself best than anybody else. So that is my invitation. Knowing how to help yourself to get out of a deep state when you know it's time. And sometimes, how would you know when it's time? When you've just been there for too long and you're just like, shit, I need to get out of here, for example. Yeah. And, or when you just need to brighten up the mood, right? Sometimes, honestly, for me, I just go to the mirror and make funky faces. I actually do that every single morning and every night. And I shake my booty and I give myself kisses through the mirror. So it's just, something that comes naturally to me. And that's the other key, something that comes naturally to you. Because, for example, the whole situation in the mirror might really come so naturally for me. And then for you, it's like, what are you talking about? Maybe for you, it is, maybe for you, singing or playing an instrument, it's like, super different. Even though we are the same in the core, we're having different experiences, and your personal story is different than my personal story. So some things that resonate with me might not resonate with you, and that's okay. That's okay. The thing here is to know exactly what you can do to help yourself, to follow your joy, so then you're not just in like the depth of shadow work, but also can bring yourself up and radiate and fill your own cup. Here we go. Fill your own cup. especially if you're a healer or a space holder, is super important and necessary. Super important and necessary. I'm going to say necessary again and again. Necessary. It's necessary for you to fill your own cup before you hold somebody else's space, and even after, because this life is about you. Yes, that is your work and that's what you came here to do, but you are the one being that you stay with in this experience until you choose to peace out. Okay? You know yourself best than anybody else. Nobody else will get to know you the way that you know yourself, even if you believe that. Yeah, nobody can. Nobody's in your shoes. Nobody's inside of you with yourself. There's some energetic things that you can do, but we're not going to get into that. Okay, so it's filling up your cup. The more that you follow your joy, the more that you do this like steps that is going to take you somewhere else. So you're going to feel joyful, that you're going to laugh, that you're just going to enjoy, right? Who knows? Maybe for you to watch TV, so different, and that's okay. Honoring that. So one more time, the invitation is write down all these things. Yeah. And you can even try it out. If one didn't work out, okay, cool. Maybe that situation, that specific situation, doesn't really work out with what you're doing, right? Because, for example, in my situation about cutting my hair, right, and coming back, I felt that inside my joy was to dance. If I would have come and like record the podcast, or if I would have come and grab my sketchbook and then do some sketches or paint or whatever, right? Or sing. I mean, it wasn't gonna cut it because my insights were like, we need to dance. And literally in underwear. Okay. So, the more that you get to do these things, the more that you're being, and you're just like, okay, I do feel it. And I know this is gonna serve me well. And then cool, it's done. And then I'm beaming more, and my vibrations are high, and I'm embodying my being, and it feels so freaking good to be here in this awesome body. Very simple, honestly. Very simple. Let's stop making it complicated and let's make it very simple because it's very simple. Well, I trust it has served you very well, and also the energy of like my joyful dance in my underwear to Shania Twain after cutting off my hair. Yes, I'm a Leo, so I can do that. You should ask Deborah Silverman. She totally agrees to that. And I love you. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day. And I just want to take a deep inhale through the nose. Exhaling, letting it go. Closing off the space. Sorena meka saito kusuna na makai kesi. Your joy. Saito pakasarenina na makai ke saita kenina maka. Remember that. Soreta peka sarenina na makai kesi. You are joy. Ciao, peace.